What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new vlog. I know it's been a very long time again since we put out the last vlog, but there are several good reasons for that. Number one, we've been potting like crazy here at Eisei-en. This is actually one of our busiest seasons of the year, starting in mid-February through the end of March. It's potting day after day after day. So I want to show you some of those projects that we've been doing over the last couple of months here. The second thing that's been keeping us relatively busy here is our online series Bonsai U, and I'll put a link in the description down below so you can check out the playlist that we've got out so far. We're putting those videos out about every other week or so, and we're doing kind of special bonus episodes in the interim weeks in between, so definitely check that out. And the third thing here that's been keeping us very busy is our brand new little guard puppy here. This is Momo-chan. She's an 11-week-old purebred German Shepherd puppy. Momo-chan actually translates to little peach, so my wife thought that was a good name for her because she's got really soft fur like a little peach, right? You're so cute. You're so cute. Okay, so let me take you guys around the garden and show you some of the new projects that we have here and what we've been doing over the last couple of months. So let's take a spin around together. Okay, so the first tree I want to show you guys here is this tree on the left. This is a Chinese quince, or a pseudo-sidonia. This is a tree that I actually purchased, I guess about 11 or 12 years ago. And when I bought it, it was just a stump. It had no branches on it at all. And as you can see, it's really filled in over the last decade or so. And this is due to constant defoliation. We defoliate this tree basically once a year every May when the new growth is completely hardened off. So we're able to create a decent amount of ramification in a relatively short amount of time. If you've ever worked with Chinese quince, you'll know that it's very difficult to produce ramifications, so to have this amount of branching on a tree like this is actually quite rare and pretty cool. So I'm very, very proud of that tree. Now the tree right next to it here, this Japanese maple, this is another one that I've been working on for a very long time. This tree is one that I put together when I was 16 years old, and if you've seen the most recent episode of Bonsai U, you'll recognize this tree. I repotted this tree in that episode, but this tree was put together as little seedlings in a workshop when I was 16 years old, and I've been working on it constantly ever since then. So it's come quite a long way in a relatively short amount of time. You know, 16, 17 years is maybe a long period of time for most people to think about, but in the life of a bonsai, that's actually a pretty quick turnaround. So I'm really excited to see sort of how this tree develops over the coming years. Now if we move down the bench here just a little bit, this little shohin guy in the middle here, this little shinpaku, this is one that actually my dad put together. He built this from a cutting essentially, and then about 2 weeks ago or so I styled it up, and it's in a nice pot from the Czech Republic. So quite excited about that. That's actually a birthday present I'm going to be giving to him here coming up pretty shortly. Now the tree next to it there, that is a Trident Maple, root over rock. This is another one that was originally imported from Japan. It's planted on what's called an Ibigawa stone, which is from the Ibi River in Japan. They used to be very popular back in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, and then as you got into the 90s and 2000s, they kind of fell out of favor. But I quite like them. They have a little bit of quartz running through the rock, so it gives it kind of an interesting texture and an interesting look, but you don't see them used very often in Japan anymore, at least in terms of new projects being built going forward. But as you can see, the leaf size on this tree is absolutely tiny. That is the natural leaf size. This is not defoliated. This is the first flush of growth that has come out this year. So when we do defoliate this one in May, the second flush of growth will actually be even smaller than that. So pretty spectacular there. Chocha, what are you doing? You see something? Get him, Momo-chan. Get him. All right, let's make our way over here. This is a Chocha, Japanese flowering quince. This is another one that we featured in a recent episode of Bonsai U. Just the repotting of this tree. There was no dialogue or anything or explanation, but wanted to tell you guys a little bit about the tree. So this is another one, obviously, that was imported from Japan years and years ago. It's also planted on an Ibigawa stone, just like the Trident Maple that we just took a look at. This tree, in the last repotting for Bonsai U, we actually put it in this special container. This is a Kowatari antique Chinese pot. So Kowatari refers to pots that were made in China prior to the year 1800. This particular pot is very special to me because Fujikawa-san, my teacher in Japan, gave this pot to me as a gift right before I left Japan and moved back to the States about 3 years ago. So it's something that is in my personal collection that I'm very fond of, and of course the Chocha is also part of my personal collection, so I combined the two together and made this composition. So this tree will be going in the U.S. National Show later this year, so definitely be on the lookout for that. All right, let's make our way down here. This tree right here is also quite special. This is a Japanese black pine. This tree is probably one of the best chuhin or medium-sized Japanese black pines in the United States. This tree very obviously could go into the Kokofu or the Japanese National Exhibition. And of course this tree was imported from Japan years and years ago as well. It's now illegal to import black pines and red pines into the United States, even with the quarantine. So to find something like this in the States nowadays is insanely rare. So we're very happy to have it here at the garden. So we're actually maintaining this tree for a very special client of ours, and this tree eventually will also go in the U.S. National Show. But we want to get it in a little bit better health, develop the ramification a little bit more. And what makes this tree so special is the taper in the trunk, the flaky bark, the fact that there's no scarring in the trunk at all, and the branches are all very, very thin. So they were more than likely grafted onto this tree after it was grown out. And this tree would have been completely container grown right from the get-go, from a seedling basically, grown out, taper created, and then those smaller branches would have been grafted on. Probably a good, somewhere around 25 years ago or so. So the tree altogether is a good close to 50 years old. So pretty spectacular little plant right there. All right, let's walk over to the front area of the garden here. This is one of our larger trees at the nursery. This is a 1C juniper that was collected in the Four Corners area of New Mexico at an elevation of about 4,500 feet, so quite high. Now technically this tree is a desert tree based on where it was located and collected. However, being at such a high elevation there, that means that the temperatures in the winter actually get quite low. So this tree can get down to temperatures down in the teens, which would be -7, -8, somewhere around there Celsius, so quite cold. It actually does very well here in Tennessee as well. It's been growing like a weed with the sort of mild temperatures that we have in the winter here. And when I say mild, we do get down into the teens here on occasion as well. But most of the temperatures around the wintertime sort of hover right around freezing or slightly below. And then of course in the summertime, we get up to 97, 98 degrees, which is 37 to 39 degrees Celsius and 100% humidity. So this tree seems to grow like a weed here, which is quite cool. So this tree was collected by Richard Lee, again out in New Mexico in the Four Corners area, and we've had it here for about 1.5 years. Really, this tree has actually only been out of the mountains about 3 years at this point. So we'll be doing another styling on this tree coming up here shortly. The wire was taken off recently. We're just kind of letting it recuperate and recover for the moment. All right, now this is probably one of our more famous trees here at Eisei-en. This is a Rocky Mountain juniper that was collected by the guys at Backcountry Bonsai, so Dan and Steve out in Wyoming. This tree has been out of the mountains now for about, I'd say 5 years or so. We did the initial styling for our online advanced course with Bonsai Empire a couple years back, and then I did a follow-up styling in our Bonsai U series just a couple of weeks ago. So very excited about the development of this tree. It's really come a long way in a very short amount of time. It's potted in a tokoname pot from Japan that I actually hand carried back on the plane with me when I came back on one of my trips a few years ago. And this tree will actually also be going in the U.S. National Show later this year. So we're getting it all prepped and ready, looking good for that show. We just need to source a nice stand for the plant and a nice accent plant. So we're working on all of that in the coming months here. All right, so let's make our way to the middle garden here. This is where we're keeping a lot of developmental projects, some of our larger Yamadori that have actually been potted up over the last couple of years here. And we're working on getting these in good enough health here to actually start styling. So a lot of the styling work here is going to end up happening starting this fall, so fall of 2020. So really excited to actually get our hands on these trees. Now, what I wanted to do here was make sure that everything that we brought in was acclimated well to the climate here in Tennessee, which meant, at least one growing season, if not 2 growing seasons, to make sure that, things were growing properly, that the weather here wasn't going to negatively affect the growth habits of the trees. And of course, once the trees adjust, then we can actually start doing the styling and wiring and heavy bending on the plant. So a lot of these trees still look raw at this particular point, but that's to be expected. And when you guys check back in later this year, when we do an update video like this, you'll see that a lot of this material will have been styled by that point. So another thing that we do here at Eisei-en is maintain trees for clients. So we have a lot of trees that are bought and purchased either here or from other nurseries, and then the trees are brought here so that we can maintain them over the course of a year or several years, perhaps leading up to an exhibition, or perhaps for more long-term development of those plants. So a lot of these trees we have over here, the Trident Maples and deciduous material, a lot of this stuff is privately owned, but we keep it here for a fee at the nursery. This is a very similar setup to how we operated in Japan and how a lot of professional nurseries operate in Japan. This is one of the reasons why you see such high quality trees at the Kokufu, for example, the Japanese National Exhibition, and at high-end nurseries in general in Japan. All right, let's make our way down into the lowest part of the nursery here. Down here we have a mixture of trees that are already styled and raw yamadori as well. So these new benches that were just put in, I put those in actually just in the last month or so with our new apprentice that we have here, a fellow named Cameron Carlson from Montana. So he's actually back up in Montana right now, but in a future episode I will introduce you guys to him once he makes his way back down here. But all of these benches we put up together, and then if you notice down here, all of this bamboo that was planted here and the railing, Cameron actually put all of that stuff in as well. So he planted all the bamboo for me, and then he and I actually built the railing together down below. So we used round post and bamboo across the front to give it a very sort of Japanese type feel. So really excited to see how this fills in. Now this bamboo down here only gets to about 60 centimeters tall, so about 2 feet, and it will spread, so it will cover this whole hillside here. But that was necessary because of course this hillside tends to erode if we're not careful. So I needed something to prevent that erosion from happening going forward. All right, let's make our way down to the bottom here. Now you see this structure over here. This is a shade structure that I put up myself last year. I built all of these benches myself, put the shade structure up myself. We don't actually have the shade cloth on here quite yet, but it's not hot enough at this point to have that up. So as soon as late June, early July rolls around this year, when the temperatures really start peaking, we'll throw that shade cloth up, and we'll use about a 30% shade block. I used 40% last year and it was just a little bit too much. We had some fungal issues with some trees, so we're going to throw up 30% this year just to help with the heavy-duty sun in the later parts of the summer. Now over here on the left-hand side, this is our yamadori area. Again, Cameron and I just set this up in the last couple of weeks here. So a lot of these trees were collected in different parts of the United States. So Wyoming mostly, some from New Mexico as well, some from the Denver area, so mostly from the Rocky Mountains. So a lot of these trees, again, were actually only collected about 6 months ago. They were potted up, brought straight here from the mountains, and we've been able to maintain them and keep them alive over the winter, and they're starting to actually throw new shoots for the year, which is really exciting. So I want to walk you through here and show you some of these trees. Let's make our way over to the back area here. This is probably one of the most spectacular Utah junipers that I've ever seen. This is a massive tree that again was collected only about 6 months ago. And as you can see, it's really starting to put on some nice growth this year. We actually kept it in this cold frame over the course of the winter. And then about a week ago or so, Cameron and I pulled it out, set it up on the bench here, and we've actually started fertilizing it. So it's throwing nice shoots, it's survived. It's gonna be a fantastic tree, but it's a massive plant. It's very, very heavy, very, very large. The width of the base there is actually probably about almost 2 feet across, maybe 1.5 feet to 2 feet, somewhere around there. So a very large plant, but again, this one will sit here for 2 full growing seasons before we do anything to it, whether that be styling or repotting, just to make sure and ensure that the tree is going to survive and be healthy going forward. But this will be another project that will feature in a future episode of Bonsai U. This is another Utah juniper here that's also quite spectacular. This is one that has actually taken a long time to throw on green growth. It was holding on to its winter sort of brownish hue for a very long time, and just in the last couple of days it's really started to green up. So I was worried about it a little bit, but I think it's actually going to survive and do quite well. So again, this tree is going to sit here for a couple of years before we do anything to it. Okay, and for the final tree of this vlog, it's our big monster 1C juniper right here, which I'm sure many of you guys have seen in previous videos. We actually featured this tree in our online advanced course with Bonsai Empire, at least the initial styling of it. This tree we're actually going to be potting up here in the next couple of weeks, And I'm a little nervous about doing that because originally we were supposed to have all of our students here for our intensive classes, and they were going to help out with the repotting of this guy. But because of the coronavirus, COVID-19, we had to cancel all the classes here. So it's just going to be myself and my apprentice Cameron doing all the work on this big boy here. Right now this thing weighs about 800 pounds, so we're going to have to figure out a way to reduce that weight to some degree, pulley it up, slide the pot under, and then pulley it back down. So I will show you that full process in a future episode of Bonsai U, so definitely be on the lookout for that. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this vlog. Momo-chan also thanks you for checking out the vlog. She's been following us around all day here. So we will see you guys next time around, and make sure to like and subscribe on the channel here so you get updates about our vlogs and of course about our Bonsai U series going forward. Till the next video though, take care.